Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today we're going to talk about the recent legalization of marijuana in Canada and what that means for survivalists and preppers. So let's get to it. Alright, so personally, as some of you know, I've taken the path of temperance in my life. My use of psychoactive substances, be it for recreation or medicinal use, is very limited. I personally don't like having my cognition impaired, and I also find that it significantly reduces my productivity. That said, I don't have anything against people who necessarily do it, unless it's having detrimental effects in other aspects of your life, which then I would probably encourage you to stop. Now, it's important to understand that every psychoactive substance which is habit-forming can also have medicinal uses if administered in the appropriate amounts. A great example of this are opiates. Opiates like fentanyl, morphine, heroin, OxyContin have revolutionized the way that we treat pain and have essentially made what in the past would be unbearable experiences bearable. However, these are also primary substances of abuse, and people who misuse these drugs do have a high chance of overdose. Now, the effects of marijuana, on the other hand, are far more mild compared to things like crystal meth, alcohol, and opiates. Nonetheless, I personally choose to avoid them just because, like I said, I don't like having my mind impaired, and I do find that it robs you of a lot of ambition and productivity. But that's just me. These drugs have different effects on different people. Now, for preppers, what utility does something like marijuana have, and what does the fact that it's now legal mean for us? Well, the first thing, of course, means that you can grow some. You can grow up to 4 plants in Canada now, in your home, legally. And it might actually be a good idea for people, even if you do not smoke pot, if you are of the preparedness mindset, to experiment with this, because this is a commodity which could have great significance if there was a societal slowdown or a total grid down situation. Not only are there numerous medical applications, but it's also going to be used recreationally in a collapse scenario. On the SHTF school website, a guy named Selko, who survived the Balkan War in the 1990s, he lived in a city which was basically in a without rule of law scenario for a year. He talks about how marijuana was used to disconnect you from the horrors that were going on around you, and that a lot of people used it just as a means to cope with the situation that they were in. And this is very similar to what happened in Vietnam, in which a high percentage of a lot of the conscripts who went over there to fight in that war, lots of them acquired various drug addictions to opiates and marijuana as a means of coping with all the stuff that was going on around them. And Selko makes an interesting statement when he says that when you see everything breaking down around you, your principles break down also. So you may have people who right now are staunchly opposed to smoking marijuana, but when the crap hits the fan and they need some sort of way to manage their anxiety, they may soften to it and start using it for psychological purposes. So getting practice in the growing of marijuana now while you can, and now that it's legal, wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. There's very few plants like it that yield something of such psychoactive potency that can be grown by pretty much anybody with very little experience. Yes, indeed, there's a lot of ins and outs to growing it, but the fact is, once a seed is germinated, while there's a lot of tricks to the trade in growing a lot of the refined strains of marijuana, the fact is it's quite simple to grow. Now, there could be potential downsides to using marijuana in a SHTF situation. One of those is going to be heightened paranoia. A lot of people who smoke it get really paranoid. In addition to that, I expect that it's going to lead to some impulsive behavior, which is going to be at odds with the fact that you're going to have to ration resources. Getting the munchies in a grid down situation is likely going to lead to the mismanagement of your very limited resources. In addition, marijuana can also lead to some mild forms of psychosis, and it can also trigger psychosis in people who have a predisposition for schizophrenia. And I've seen this happen firsthand. If you want to inflame a schizophrenic's symptoms, give them some marijuana. Now, there's 2 components in marijuana which can cause different effects. There's CBD, and then there's the THC. Now, CBD or cannabinoids don't have a psychoactive effect, like THC does. Both THC and CBD have positive effects when it comes to treating medical ailments, but of course THC has that high that not a lot of people like. Now, there are ways to extract CBD oil from the marijuana plant if you just strictly want the medicinal properties of the plant without having these psychoactive effects, and that is something that you can research online. There's ample amounts of information on that for you there to explore. But that said, there's a lot of people who are going to want to dissociate from the stress and the reality of a grid down scenario, and they're actually going to welcome that impairment. So this is something you could use potentially for trade and barter, in addition to the numerous medical applications it might have, things like anxiety, depression, dealing with migraines, pain management, nausea, inflammation. Various types of psychosis can be treated, but then again, it can also cause psychosis. Seizures, glaucoma, struggling with low appetite or dealing with nausea, muscle spasticity, multiple sclerosis, neuropathic pain, epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a variety of conditions which can be treated by using marijuana. And the difference between it and a lot of other psychopharmaceuticals on the market is that it's something that you can grow with little experience, and it requires no synthesizing of different chemicals in a lab. That said, however, the cognitive impairment of using marijuana is going to come by way of an increased heart rate, potential coordination problems. You're going to have a slower reaction time in most cases. There's going to be, of course, short-term memory loss. You're just all around going to be impaired, and you don't want somebody smoking pot who is supposed to be, defending an outpost or something like that. So as much as it's going to be a means to cope with the stress of the situation, it's not a performance enhancing substance for most people. Now that said, however, if you have a person who's otherwise incapacitated without it, and marijuana can bring them to a level of functioning which is an improvement over their baseline, then it may actually be more productive to have that person on it and impaired than not on it at all. So do I think that marijuana legalization affords some opportunity for preppers and survivalists? Absolutely. Any law which is implemented to protect a certain liberty for you to do something is also going to increase your ability to be self-reliant to some degree or another. So I'm not saying that people should start smoking marijuana for recreational use, but I do think that preppers should seriously start considering it as a resource for medicinal, recreational, and trade and barter use in a post-collapse environment. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Canadian Prepper out. The best way to support this YouTube channel is to support yourself by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com or BugoutRoll.ca. Premium quality gear at the best possible price using the incredibly secure and easy to use Shopify platform. We offer free shipping to the United States for orders over $200 USD and free shipping to Canada over $75. So support the channel by supporting yourself.